pallets over there for a specific reason. It's not because he's a pallet collector. It's not because pallets randomly appear out of nowhere on his farm. And no, he drives 10, 20, 30, 50 miles to get those pallets. He has a very specific reason for them. And so sometimes people are like, why do they have pallets? You think he drove 50 miles for no reason? Like, this guy's in the middle of nowhere. I guarantee you there's a reason he has pallets. Anyway, so that's one thing. And that's not really against me. That's the farmer that they're like, oh, the farmer needs to clean up those pallets. Well, you think he drove 50 miles to get them for no reason? They're keeping their feed off the ground so it stays dry. And then what I'll end up doing is I'll go and lift those pallets, and the rats come out and the dogs catch them. And then I'll put the pallet back down. And then the guys will be like, why didn't you get the pallet out of the way? Well, sometimes it's because it's not reasonable. Like, there's too many different things to move, and there's nowhere I could really move them to get them out of the way. But sometimes I will literally leave it there, because now that I've lifted it, because usually you can't just pick it up. Usually it's like sunk down in the earth, and you have to kind of dig it out. And it takes a while to get it lifted. But once it's lifted, it's super easy. A child could go move it again. Whereas it took you a few minutes and a little bit of effort the first time. Now it's easy. So where would I rather that rat run? Under the pallet that I could just lift? Or
Is there anything better than a trip getting ready? Nope. For a long journey where our podcast released a new app and searching for a fade feeling, new fixation. Giving this a subscribe is the same sensation. Started with the day ones, they gave us fuel to support the season. Could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here for a reason. Notification bells, text some friends, all to let you know. Check your Bluetooth, connect, talk your wisdom out.
Welcome in, everyone. This episode, Mink About It, with our guest, Joseph Carter, the Minkman. Now, today's guest lives a life most people only see on their screen. That's how I came across him. And even then, they don't quite believe it. I didn't either. Like, one day he caught 512. One time he had 512 rats in a shed. We'll get to that stuff, everyone. But Joseph Carter, known as the Minkman, has built a following by doing something most of us would never attempt. We're probably all afraid, but he's bonding with, training, and hunting alongside one of nature's most intense predators. This isn't just about animals or viral videos. It's about discipline, ethics, controversy, and what happens when you choose a life far outside the norm. This is a conversation you won't hear every day. Joseph, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Glad I could be here.
I want to start a little origin, little identity, because everyone's going to be like, let's get to the good stuff. Let's find out about this guy. How did you first cross paths with a mink? And at what point did you realize this was going to become your life?
Oh, man. So I started out, I was a falconer in my early teens. And so I was training birds of prey to hunt. And I'd also had experience working with my grandfather. He was a horse trainer. And so I trained what are called cow cutting horses. If you were from Texas, you might know what a cow cutting horse is. Most people wouldn't. It's basically like a cattle herding competition, kind of, to put it simply. But I helped my grandpa train cattle horses. I trained cattle dogs. I was flying birds of prey for fun. And one day I moved with my grandfather to a place that was near a mink farm. And I asked everyone, well, what's a mink? And everyone told me they're the meanest, most vicious, most horrible creatures alive. You can't tame them. You can't train them. They're just unruly, unmanageable creatures. And of course, with my background and I was a senior in high school at the time. So, the utmost stage of confidence in your life, right? Yeah. I thought I could do anything. And so I thought, well, I want to give it a try. I want to see if I can train a mink. They say it's impossible, which made me want to give it a try. Yeah. And so I went out and purposely sought out a mink, caught one, and tamed it. And it wasn't that big a deal. And I was like, well, see, I told you I could do it. But from there, I was like, well, what useful things could I do with this animal other than just tame it? Like, I was used to working animals, right? Working dogs, working horses, not having a pet hawk. I participate actively in falconry, so I'm hunting with the hawk. So I was into doing things with animals, not just keeping them around. So I was like, well, what useful thing could I do with a mink? So I started researching more what they did in the wild, what they ate, and things like that. And I thought, well, they catch fish and crayfish and stuff underwater. They catch rats and rabbits and squirrels on land. I wonder if I could hunt or fish with one. And from there, I just started experimenting with it. And it took many, many years process to figure out the basics because I didn't have anyone that could teach me. I had to just kind of guess based off of previous experiences or research other disciplines and see if they applied to what I was already doing. Yeah. And just little by little, I started figuring it out. And yeah, I was documenting what I was doing on YouTube because this was 2008. I got my first mink in 2003, and I started documenting what I was doing in 2008 just to basically show, hey, it's possible to tame a mink. See, everyone says it's impossible. Look, it is possible. And then basically to document how I was training them. And so previous to that, because obviously there's a big gap between 2003 and 2008, I was just writing notes, and I had a little notebook, and I'd scribble down, well, this is what I did today, and this is what the mink did. And no intentions of making it a book or anything. I was just keeping notes on what I'd done for my own knowledge and memory. And then, like I said, when YouTube came out, I was like, hey, this is more convenient. I don't have to write notes. I can make a video and show what I'm doing. So
yeah. Why do you think the mink specifically grabs you in no way an other animal did? I mean, I feel like, I don't know. It seems like the macho guys, we always want the big, angry. I like that you said that everyone was telling you how vicious they were. But in hindsight, do you think anything else could have competed and drawn your attention?
Oh, for sure. There's a whole slew of different animals in the mink family. They call it the weasel family. Yeah. There's long-tailed weasels, badgers, there's otters, there's fishers, there's martens, there's all kinds of things. And they're all very fascinated and similar in a way that they're all very highly aggressive predators. I think mainly, to be honest, it was just pure coincidence that it was the first one that I ran into. I mean, I'd had ferrets before, but they kind of bored me. They were like a sock with a heartbeat. They weren't very strong or fast or aggressive. They were just kind of they just kind of took life as it came. And I thought they were cool, but they didn't really catch my interest the way mink did, because mink, being a wild member of the weasel family, they're just so much quicker, more athletic, more aggressive, more everything. And so it was just pure convenience, I guess, really, because I happened to live near a mink farm and there was mink available. Had it been a fisher farm or a marten farm, I mean, I could be the marten man right now.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. What about the people close to? We almost always have someone closest to us that, I don't know, sometimes they're a little negative. What did people closest to you think when you first told them what you were doing? Anyone try to talk you out of it? And then of course, they had to eat crow after that.
No, not real. I mean, no one that I was close to, distant, neighbors and stuff, were like, oh, you can't do it, but no, my family's just like, oh yeah, Joe's off on another tangent, whatever. I already had pet raccoons and other random crap, so they weren't surprised at all. They're like, hey, at least it's something small, He's already been a falconer for years. Have fun with the mink. Nobody was surprised in my immediate family or friend group. They're just like, it's Joe off on another animal adventure. I would say the neighbors and the mink farmers, they were the more negative ones. They're like, it's impossible. But no one that I was close to, they just all assumed I was going to have success and it would work out great. They weren't too worried about it. At least that was my interpretation of their reaction. If they did have concerns or doubts, they sure didn't express them. They just let Joe do what he's going to do. He's going to drag some animal home and try and mess with it.
Yeah.
If it's not a mink, it'll be something else. So
Now, some of us, I mean, you've mentioned weasel and ferret and martins. Some of us wouldn't know the differences between them. So, more specifically on the mink, how would you describe a mink's personality as someone who's never seen one up close?
okay, so I like to always say mink are the jack of all trades, master of one. And I know the phrase is master of none, but I change it specifically for the mink. Jack of all trades, master of one. And why I say that is I kind of stole that term from a wildlife biology teacher I had in high school. He was describing the mink as the jack of all trades. But he said master of none because he didn't know any better. So the reason they said that and why I stole that phrase and repeat it so often is because mink are able to do things that several different members of the weasel family can do. So, for example, otters. What do otters eat? Everybody knows. They dive in the water, they catch fish and crabs and crayfish and frogs and things like that. And a mink, just like an otter, they can dive underwater and catch fish and crayfish and frogs and snakes and all kinds of things like the otter. But they're not as good at it as the otter is. They don't have all the special adaptations an otter has. Otter has to have big, long, specialized whiskers to feel around, and they've got see-through eyelids that they can close underwater and still see, and their eyes adjust so that they can see better underwater, and they can hold their breath for significantly longer, and they've got a big rudder tail and fully webbed feet. They've got a whole list of special adaptations to allow them to specialize hunting prey underwater. Well, a mink is a lot less specialized. They have a waterproof coat. They have partial webbing, but only partial. They don't have a rudder-like tail. They don't have a lot of the specializations of the otter. However, they're very good at catching fish, very good at catching crayfish. Most mink, roughly half of their diet comes from underwater prey, like fish and crayfish, things like that. But unlike an otter, who, like I said, they're so specialized that they could do all those things in the water, unlike a mink, the otter can't then go up on land and go run down a bunny or climb up a tree and catch a squirrel hiding in a hollow, hiding in its nest or hiding in a hollow tree. They can't do any of that. They can't climb. They're slow and awkward on land. They're specialized to just the water. So if you want to compare a mink more to like a weasel, weasels are specialists on land. They don't have waterproofing in their coat. Just a little bit of water will make them wet. And they don't have the ability to dive underwater and hold their breath and catch things. A weasel just lives on land. And on land, they're going to catch things like squirrels and rabbits and chipmunks and mice and things like that. And they're going to specialize on that land-based prey. And they're, in fact, better at it than a mink. They're a little bit quicker, a little better at climbing. They're just a little smaller so they can fit down tighter holes, things like that. But when land-based prey gets scarce, the weasel runs out of luck and he's starving, whereas the mink can dive in the water and catch fish instead. But he can also run, like I said, on land and catch all the same things a weasel does. Maybe not as good, but pretty good. He can catch those squirrels and the rabbits and the mice and the voles and all of that. And so the mink's able to basically juggle back and forth between land-based and water-based prey, unlike any other, at least North American mammal can. And then the one thing that mink are, like I said, jack of all trades, master of one. The one thing they're masters at above all other predators is preying on muskrats. A muskrat is a little semi-aquatic mammal similar to a beaver. They're not that closely related to beavers, but they're very similar in a lot of ways. They're actually most closely related to the vole. If you know what a vole is, it's like some people call them field mice. It's a little short-tailed rodent that runs around in the fields. But anyway, their closest relative is the vole. And muskrats are semi-aquatic. They eat aquatic vegetation and plants growing along the shores of a waterway, but they primarily live in the water. They use the water to escape predation and to protect themselves. And then when they dig a burrow, like a beaver, if you've seen a diagram of a beaver dam, how their entrance is under the surface of the water, and then they come up to the bubble above the water level. Muskrats do the same thing, except they don't build a lodge the way a beaver does. They just dig a tunnel into the ground. So, well, actually, that's not true. They do sometimes build their own little lodges out of plant material, but in my experience, where I hunt them, they're not just overwhelmingly, they're always digging in the ground and living in burrows. I don't think I've ever actually hunted what they call a muskrat hut, which is basically a mini beaver dam or beaver lodge, excuse me. So anyway, the muskrat digs a hole down underneath the water surface and then comes up. That way predators can't as easily find them and can't go in their hole. If it's like a weasel not going to get them because a weasel's not going to go down under the water and come up in their hole. And then, other predators that wouldn't be able to get in their hole anyway won't be able to smell them as easily because it's the entrance begins underwater. But the mink, of course, being a semi-aquatic predator, that doesn't stop them. They'll dive right down in their holes. And in fact, the number one denning place for mink in muskrat habitat are muskrat dens. That's their favorite place to live. And their favorite thing to eat is the muskrat. And so mink do not rely on muskrats. That's just a big part of their diet. Depending on where they're living, it could be a bigger or smaller part of their diet. But it's a part of their diet. And in most cases, mink are considered the number one natural predator for muskrats. So I call them the jack of all trades, master of one. Catching fish, not as good as an otter, but better than a weasel, right? Who catches none. And they're catching rabbits and squirrels and rats and mice on the land. Not quite as good as a weasel, but way better than an otter who's almost useless at it. And then their master ability is to be able to hunt muskrats, unlike any other predator.
If you could clean up anything, what's the biggest misconception people have about mink behavior? I believe it's like you were saying, most people think that they can't be trained, or would there be something else?
Not really. I mean, most people just think, oh, they're vicious and mean and can't be tamed. And that's not true, but honestly, they're more correct than the other assumption, which is, oh, look, the Minkman did it, so we could all go tame mink. Well, there's a reason I'm the first guy to quote unquote do it. And I don't mean the first guy to tame mink. There's tons of documented cases of people taming mink. That was disproven long before my efforts. The one thing that makes what I do unique is that I actually put them to work and use them for pest control. Most people who've successfully tamed a mink have done absolutely nothing useful with it. They just like, oh, I got this cool pet, I put it in a cage. Like they haven't gone out and like put them to work, found a use and a benefit with that mink. That's the one thing that's unique about me. And there's a reason it's unique to me. And it's just because they're incredibly stubborn. I mean, they're very aggressive, very stubborn, and a lot of instinct. So something goes wrong, and man, they'll take off and react in a wild animal way, whether it's biting or running or whatever. And so you have to have a lot of patience and a lot of know-how to have success with a mink. Now, one thing about mink, though, they've got a really wide range of different personalities. So you always could get lucky and get that one easy one and be like, oh yeah, I could do it. I don't know what Minkman was talking about. That was pretty easy. And then the next one you get, you're going to be like, oh man, this one's totally different. So that's part of the tricky part is you tame one, everything you did to tame and work with and have success with that one individual could not apply at all to the next mink. You might have to change everything. Literally every method, every thought process is different with this mink than that. Maybe not every, that's a bit of an extreme, but most things are different. And so, yeah, that's the other difficulty is, so what, you have success once, now go repeat it. The next mink's probably not going to be all that similar. And so you'll have to figure it out all over again. And most people just aren't made for it. I mean, they want a pre-made, easy to follow recipe and just go through life. And that's just not going to work with mink most of the time.
I wonder if you've ever lost them. You said you had a wild mink, and it just seems like it would just like run off on you, and then you got to go catch it again, or are they will stay kind of close to you? Did you ever lose one?
Yeah, I've lost them before, but it's surprisingly rare. It really should be more common than it is, seeing their nature and the places that I take them. But no, it's actually far less common than I would expect. Like if you were to ask me, give me all the knowledge I have now without the experience. And I'd be like, man, yeah, I'm sure you lose them all the time. But no, for some reason, I've been able to avoid it the overwhelming majority of the time. And I've even lost some for as long as 3 weeks and still got them back, just setting a bunch of traps. Oh, one I lost for about a year, or maybe it was a couple of years. I can't remember. It was over a year at least. So it was like a year or 2 or 3. And her brother, I lost him, and I was looking for him, and I was setting some traps trying to catch him, and I caught her. And I recognized her as like, I know this mink, but I didn't know who she was. I just knew that I knew her. I'm like, how do I know this mink? And so I checked with my little, because I put chips in my mink. I checked with my little chip breeder. I'm like, oh, hey, you're the sister to the mink I'm looking for. Where's your brother? No, it's incredibly rare. It really should happen more than it does. Honestly, most of the time when I permanently lose a mink, believe it or not, it's at home. It's almost always at home. They get out of their cage and I'm not aware. And by the time I find out, they're gone. That happens way more often than like we're out hunting and they disappear and I don't see them again. So it's usually a mishap at home that ends up with a permanent loss. Almost never out hunting. In fact, the mink that I was just describing that I was looking for her brother, that happened at home. He got out at home. And what had actually ended up happening was the neighbor opened his shed. It was winter, opened his shed and then shut it again. He had no idea the mink was out. And the mink had gone in his shed and was locked in there. And he passed away because he had no way of getting out. And we didn't find out till the next spring. So it was like 4 months later, the neighbor calls me. He's like, I think I found your mink. And I'm like, crap. And I go in there and he's curled up in a bucket, and he'd been dead for months and months and months. But being it was cold winter, it preserved him enough that I could recognize him. And then of course I did the chip reader and knew for sure without a doubt that it was him. But yeah, I mean, I've lost him. Other than that one weird one where I got her back a year later, I've lost him for like 6 days, 3 weeks. One mink was loose in the neighborhood. That one got out of its cage. It was loose in the neighborhood for 3 weeks. And I found a dead rat near her cage. And it had been killed by a mink. I could tell it had its head crushed. I'm like, why is there this dead rat here? I must have dropped it or something. Like, I was so confused. I was like, how did I forget a dead rat? And just like, I don't get it. And I didn't even cross my mind that it could be the mink that escaped, almost a month earlier. And then one day I had a rat in a cage and I was walking back and it started squeaking and she come running out of the bushes like, and I'm like, there's a mink. And it is the same color as another mink I had, and I looked over in the cage and that was still in the cage. This one's out of the cage. And I was so confused, like, what is going on here? Thinking I'm losing my mind for a minute. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I lost a mink 3 weeks ago. Is that? Yes, it is. There's her name was Missy. There's Missy. And I hurried and grabbed her by the tail, put her in a cage. But yeah, that's uncommon though. Like I've been doing this since actively hunting successfully since 2012. And we're at what, 2026? What's that, 14 years? Is my math off?
Yeah.
14 years. And the number of mink I've actually lost over that 14 years permanently, not a temporary, I lost track of them. It's incredibly low for as many as I really should have lost because they are incredibly sneaky animals. No joke. We were ratting once in a backyard, the most mundane of scenarios. And the mink went under the shed and I had a friend on one side and I'm on the other and a third person on the other. We're just covering all our bases. There's no way this mink's going to sneak past us. And we sat there for an hour and I'm like, where is this mink? Man. And then all of a sudden my friend's like, dude, look over there. And we look in the neighbor's yard and there's a mink. It was the one I'd lost that I didn't know I'd lost. I just thought he was taking his sweet time under the shed. I was like, what is he doing under there, man? It's been forever. No, he wasn't under the shed. He was gallivanting through the whole neighborhood and we had no idea. And she just happened to, I mean, who knows how long she'd been gone. She might've been gone the entire time. Like literally we let her go and then she was gone. Or she might've only been gone for half of that time. And we have no idea. All we know is all of a sudden we look behind us and there she is running through the neighbor's yard. I'm like, freak. It's like, I went and got her back. But they're really sneaky, man. You think you know where they're at. I honestly have I have a tracking device now that I put on my mink, but I can only use it in certain situations because it'll prevent them from getting down a really tight hole. So if we're hunting something big like a muskrat where the hole's really big, I can put this tracker on. Otherwise, I can't. But anyway, I have the tracker on half the time just to confirm that they're still there. It's like, are they still here? Okay, we're good. We don't need to stress. Yeah. Are they still here? Yep, he's still there. Good. We don't need to stress, you know.
Building trust, because you mentioned earlier a wild mink. Can you walk us through the process of building trust with an animal that's naturally aggressive and wild?
Yeah, it really just comes down to, I want to say common sense, but I guess it's really not common for most people. Don't make them angry. If you grab them, they're not going to like it, and they're going to get mad, and they're going to bite you. So don't grab them. Find a way around that, and you're usually good to go. Mink are little jerks, though. They'll bite you just for the sake of biting you. But just basically what I've gotten to now is I pretty much just avoid their teeth and don't make them mad, and everything's good. So I do tame a mink once a year or every other year, something like that, where I raise one from a baby and I keep it bonded to me, and it's, much easier to handle, more enjoyable to work with. But the rest of my mink, I don't even bother taming them at all. I just teach them, hey, you go in this little live trap or a little carry box, little pet kennel, and I'll give you a piece of meat, and I don't have to touch you. You don't have to touch me. And we just, stay friends from an arm's length. That's the easiest way to deal with them. And that's how 90% of my mink are. But like I said, about once a year, every other year, every 3 years, something like that, I put in the time and I tame one down. And I start from a baby and I get them real manageable. Now, years ago, when I first started, I tamed fully grown adults, mostly just to say that I could. Once I got past the see, look, I could do it over and over and over again. I've done it 6 times. It kind of lost its intrigue, and I haven't done it since, because I'm like, what's the point? I already proved I could do it. I literally went to the farm and picked the meanest mink on the whole farm, brought it home and tamed it. Like, I don't have anything else left to prove. It's not worth the effort and the bites and the stress, and it's just not worth it. I'll just teach them to come to a little live trap or a little pet taxi, and I don't have to touch them. They don't have to touch me. And I really do enjoy the bond when you raise one from a baby. So I do that, like I said, every other year, every 3 years. But I haven't tamed a mink since 2016 or something like that. Like, it's been a long time. Tamed an adult, mature mink.
Yeah.
Probably 2016, 2014. I don't know, something like. It's been a long time. Just because, like I said, there's no real value to it. I can get them to come back without them being friendly. And I can get the joy of handling a mink out of one I raised from a baby. So, yeah, it's just how I do it. And like I said, I don't even know how many I tamed from adulthood. It was well over half a dozen. And literally 2 of them was me going to the farm and picking the meanest one I could get. I did that twice. I got them both hand tame in weeks. So I was like, I don't need to prove anything else. I'm good. I'll just raise them from a baby or not handle them, one or the other.
What's the most intense or unexpected moment you've experienced while hunting with a mink? Like one of those, I can't believe that happened moments. I know I was looking at one.
There's lots of ones, but there's several I can't share. So I'm trying to think of one I can share.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I can think of several right off the top of my head, but there's no way I'm sharing it in public. Sorry. Okay. This is kind of a funny story. I wouldn't say it's not really necessarily hunting, but it's a funny story, I guess. Okay, so I had a little mink. Her name was Istapide, and I bottle raised her, and she was super bonded to me. And most mink, when you bottle raise them, they're only bonding to one person, maybe 2, and then they hate the rest of the world. Unusually hate the rest of the world. If you were to catch a mink in the wild, they're more friendly than one that I bottle raised towards you, for example. They're nice to me, but towards you, they have this extra animosity. And I think it's because they don't fear people anymore. and they kind of maybe get a little territorial. They're like, because in the wild, mink are not buddies. They're extremely territorial. Paul Arrington claims that more wild mink are killed by other wild mink than all other natural predators combined. So
Wow.
If you bottle raise one, I kind of think you're making them like hate the outside world, because they now kind of see people as like part of their species in a way. And so now all of a sudden they're going to attack other people like they would another mink. Anyway, so I had a mink like this, super bonded to me, super, super sweet and gentle to me, but just hated the world. And I had her in my car, and it was a summer's evening. So it wasn't going to get hot from the sun, but it was still summer. And I was like, mink get hot really easy. I don't want to risk her getting hot in the car. So I rolled the window down, just a couple inches. And I thought, that'll be fine. She can't get out, and it'll make sure there's a little airflow so it doesn't get too warm in there. Again, it was evening. I probably shouldn't have even rolled the window down at all, but I just wanted to be extra safe because mink do get hot pretty easy. So I cracked the window, got out, and I went into Institute, which an institute's like a religious class for college students. In my faith, I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. People call us Mormons. And when you're in high school, you go to what's called seminary. And then when you're in college, you go to what's called institute. So anyway, parked my car at the institute building, which was right next to the college. And because I live here in Utah, and so our faith is very, very, very heavily dominant in this state in particular. So like the schools always have like an institute or a seminary building right next to them because of all the students going to it. So anyway, I parked my car and I left my door open or window open a crack and went to institute. And when I got done, it was fully dark at that point. And I couldn't find my mink, and I checked all over my car, couldn't find my mink. And I'm just panicking, like, where did she go? I'm like, how in the world did she squeeze out of that little crack? Well, she did. And she was running around campus, and I'd searched everywhere. I was looking for her, and finally went to bed, just exhausted in the middle of the night when I finally gave up looking. And the next morning I called animal control, and they're like, I'm like, hey, have you guys seen like a little black ferret or like a mink, if you know what that is? And they're like, oh yeah, a little black one. I'm like, yeah. Do you have her? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay. I'm coming right now. And so I drive over there. So come to find out, she'd gotten out and she went and jumped in someone's backpack. Someone was like sitting on the curb waiting for their ride or something. And their backpack was unzipped, and she went in their backpack, and then they tried to get her out and she bit them. And so they called animal control, and animal control took her, and she broke out of every cage they had because they didn't have a proper facility for mink. And so it was breaking out of all their cages. So when they bring her to me, she's in this like rabbit hutch hamster cage, and it's got padlocks like everywhere, like not just the doors, like the joints of the cage, because she's popping the cage open and then chasing them around, and they're like running in fear. And so every time she breaks out, she attacks them, and they're all running around. Anyway, so they bring her out, and literally this cage covered in padlocks. And I'm like, guys have trouble keeping her in? They're like, oh, you have no idea. She's been terrorizing us all night. Anyway, so they open up the cage, and to their surprise, she jumps to me and is licking my face, all happy to see me like a little puppy. And they're like, oh, look, she looks so cute. And the animal control lady's like, well, she's not cute to us, man. She's been terrorizing us all night. So anyway, I was like, so can I take her home? Do I need to pay you guys? Like, what do I need to do? And the one lady's like, well, technically she needs to be in quarantine because of it. And the other lady's like, shut up. You want to keep her for 8 days? I don't want to keep her for 8 days. Let him take his mink. Look how much she likes him. We'll let him keep her in quarantine. And she's like, oh, good point. I guess he could technically do the quarantine, for rabies, Anyway, so I took her home. Anyway, that was just a wild story. I guess one unexpected hunting thing. I was out hunting with a mink years and years ago named Missy, and she went into a muskrat hole, and she was gone for quite a while. And then she'd come out all excited, and then she dipped in there again. And then she'd come out all excited, and then she dipped in there. And I'm like, man, what is she doing? Like, there's no muskrat, and the mink comes in and out and in and out and in and out, all excited like she's trying to kill something. But I'm never seeing the muskrat. What's going on? Anyway, she goes in there. All of a sudden, this big honking beaver comes out of the hole. And the hole's under the water, so we don't know where the entrance is and like how big of it is. We think it's just a little muskrat. Big old beaver comes out, and she'd been in there. I don't know what she's doing, biting it on the butt or something for like half an hour. And finally, it's just like, dude, I'm tired of this little pest. And beavers are huge. Beavers are like, I don't know how big this one was because we never caught it, but like on average, they're about 40 pounds as an adult. And that's not a big adult. That's like if they're under 30, I don't know, under 30 pounds, they're juvenile. They're a baby. In fact, even right on 30 pounds would probably still be considered a juvenile or a baby. It's like mid 30s and up before they're even starting to be considered an adult. So who knows how big this one was, but we're talking full-size dog coming out of this hole, and the mink's just harassing it while it's in the hole. And that was weird. That was not expected. And
yeah. It just seems, I mean, those muskrats that I've seen on your channel, I could tell they look bigger than the mink, and I'm just shocked that the mink will go in there with no fear. It's incredible. Wow.
Yeah, muskrats are very aggressive little suckers. They're about the size of kind of like a small rabbit-ish, but they have big old beaver teeth, and they absolutely know how to use them.
Your work sparks strong reactions online. What criticism actually makes you stop and think?
In that I wonder if they have a point, or what do you mean by makes me stop and think?
Yeah, it's just as content creators, you and I both know sometimes you shouldn't go through all the comments because there's always going to be someone against you. But if there's ever someone that says, well, could you do this? Or is there another way that you could put something out of its misery? I mean, everyone wants the Monday morning quarterback what you're doing, except for the people that hire you and ask you to come out and, hey, can you clear that shed for me? So I was just wondering if there's ever any times where, someone says, you got any other tricks up your sleeve and doing it this way?
Yeah, I have a lot of people that don't have any experience at all trying to give me some type of recommendation. You should do it this way, or you should do it that way. That's just human nature. I would hate to be a plumber or an electrician sitting there at the homeowner looking over my shoulder. I'm sure they get all kinds of stupid comments. And that's basically what I would guess. I've never been either, but I know in my field of work, I get people, I will do something on purpose for a reason, and then people like mock me for it. And I typically respond with, well, think about it. I've been doing this for over 12 years, and you've never done this. Do you think there's a chance I did that on purpose? And if so, why would I do that on purpose? Because you think it's counterintuitive. Well, think about it, why it might be intuitive. And usually they can't figure it out, which makes sense. They don't have the experience. For example, I will lift some of the farms that we're doing pest control on, they'll have these, what are they called? Pallets. They'll have pallets, and what they do is they put the pallet down, and then they put a feeder on top of the pallet. And what it does is it makes a space between the ground and the feed, so that if it rains a lot, it doesn't soak the feeder and ruin all the feed, make it go waste it all. And so the pallet has a specific purpose. It's not just there because the farmer's lazy and he went all the way into town, bought or found a free pallet, drove all the way back to farm, threw it in the field, and then left it there. I mean, that would be retarded. Why would he do that? It makes no sense. He has a specific purpose. He has a pile of pallets over there for a specific reason. It's not because he's a pallet collector. It's not because pallets randomly appear out of nowhere on his farm. And no, he drives 10, 20, 30, 50 miles to get those pallets. He has a very specific reason for them. And so sometimes people are like, why do they have pallets? You think he drove 50 miles for no reason? Like, this guy's in the middle of nowhere. I guarantee you there's a reason he has pallets. Anyway, so that's one thing, and that's not really against me. That's the farmer that they're like, oh, the farmer needs to clean up those pallets. Well, you think he drove 50 miles to get them for no reason? They're keeping their feed off the ground so it stays dry. And then what I'll end up doing is I'll go and lift those pallets, and the rats come out and the dogs catch them. And then I'll put the pallet back down, and then the guys will be like, why didn't you get the pallet out of the way? Well, sometimes it's because it's not reasonable. Like there's too many different things to move, and there's nowhere I could really move them to get them out of the way. But sometimes I will literally leave it there because now that I've lifted it, because usually you can't just pick it up. Usually it's like sunk down in the earth and you have to kind of dig it out, and it takes a while to get it lifted. But once it's lifted, it's super easy. A child could go move it again. Whereas it took you a few minutes and a little bit of effort the first time. Now it's easy. So where would I rather that rat run? Under the pallet that I could just lift, or escape into the next pen, or into a hole I've got to dig up? Well, heck yeah, I want him to go under that pallet because I'll be able to just, if the dogs don't snatch him in time, he'll at least stop there. He won't keep going to the next pen over or down some hole that we have to spend half an hour digging up or whatever. So I will purposely leave things so they do hide there. And then people are like, man, you have to keep lifting that pallet over and over again. I'm like, yeah, I'm glad I get to lift that pallet over again. You know how easy it is to lift a pallet compared to digging a rat out of a hole or moving over to the next pen over to find the rat that escaped. You know, it's way easier to do that than to track some rat down in a field. Who knows where it ran to, you know?
Yeah. How do you personally define ethical hunting and animal use?
So what do you mean by that? Clarify your question.
Well, and this probably goes back to those that are in the comments, some people that say things. So we know that like if you're blind, you have a dog that leads you around. Service members have service dogs. That's animal use. Ethical hunting, someone may say, again, they might sharpshoot you and say, isn't there another way to kill? Like for instance, I watch a guy on YouTube who goes out at night with with night vision, and he's just popping rats, just like pow, pow, and they're gone immediately. But I've seen your animals shake them, and I know they're not living after that. So I was just kind of curious how you would define your ethical hunting, because your mink puts them out quick, or if you think it's more of animal use to solve the problem.
Well, I would kind of on that topic. This isn't going to exactly answer your question. I'm actually going to go off on a little tight side tangent here. A lot of people jump to some really silly conclusions. Now, I have to clarify. I have absolutely nothing against people shooting. If you want to shoot, great. It's not my thing. Not interested in it. But I have no qualms against those who are interested in it. But I do have qualms against people who are interested in that and then try to say that their way is more ethical than mine. Okay? I have a big qualm with that because you are a liar. You're a liar to yourself, because how many times have you shot an animal and it didn't die? Guess what? You don't know the answer to that question. You don't. You don't. You will never know the answer to that question. Guess what? I find animals every day who've been shot, and the hunter may have never even known that they shot it. They might have known. They might have watched the bird flutter or the rat kick or whatever they're shooting, right? They might very well know, oh, I hit it. Oh, I got away. But there's a very significant percentage that nobody even realizes are maimed. Sometimes the animal lives a normal lifespan with one leg missing, or an eye missing, or a pain in its arm, its leg, because it healed crooked after being shot. I mean, there's lots of animals who are maimed, or even just have a temporary pain before they die. It takes them half an hour to 2 hours to 10 hours to 20 hours to bleed out and die from the shot. So anyone who says shooting is ethical, they either have never shot in their life or they're completely dishonest. to themselves and other people around them. Because a lot of times they're lying to themselves. They're not just lying to me. They're lying to themselves. They're not thinking about that one time the rat flipped around and flipped around and flipped around and down and went down a hole. They're not thinking about that one time they saw its body part fly off and the animal crawled down in the hole. They're not thinking about all of those obvious scenarios where the animal didn't die. They're thinking of the perfect shot and the perfect death. And anyone says that you always get a perfect shot and a perfect death has either never been shooting or they are a liar. Now, I have nothing against anyone shooting. I'm not trying to say, I'm better than you and you guys are unethical. No. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say, stop lying to yourself. Shooting is not a quick and easy death every time. One animal in 100 doesn't die immediately. He suffers more than 100 mink killed rats or 100 dog killed rats. That one animal that crawled away with a broken spine and died 48 hours later or 3 weeks later from starvation or whatever, he suffered more than every animal I've ever killed in my life combined. That one animal that got hit in the spine and didn't die right away and starved to death down in the hole with his back legs not working, right? So anyway, I have nothing against shooters. I'm just saying, be honest. Don't lie to yourself. Don't lie to the public and say, oh, they all die immediately. No, they don't. They do not.
No,
sorry, they don't.
It's a good point. I mean, we see it. We see guys that are boar hunting and they'll hit it. And in the slow-mo, we see that hit. And now they got to go track it. They got to go find it. And there's been some times deer hunting. You're spot on. You're spot on, Joe.
Whole breeds of dogs bred to do nothing but find something you shot and ran away.
Yeah.
I guess how many dogs are bred to find animals that were grabbed by a mink and ran away, or grabbed by a dog and grabbed away? None, because when a dog grabs an animal, he's got it. When a mink grabs an animal, they've got it. There's no, and if they do escape, it's because they barely got bit, and it's a non-lethal, non-serious injury, and they just run away and they have a little bruise on their butt. Oh, well, boo-hoo. And they live their life normally the rest of their life. They're not running around with an arrow through their head, or a bullet broke its shoulder and he's got to wobble around on 3 legs till he starves to death in the winter. I mean, it's a totally different scenario. A wounded, first off, is incredibly rare for a wounded animal to escape a mink or dog, almost non-existent. And then when they do, it's typically a super minor injury that they just recover from easily without ill effects. Okay, so here's the other hypocrisy that I kind of get on, freak out. And this one I am against. So shooting, I have nothing against that. All of my like hyped up energy was not anti-shooting. No, it was just like, dude, stop lying. I realize that things go wrong. You, if you're honest, realize that things go wrong. Get off your high horse saying you're better than me, because you're not. Sorry. Now, there's one thing that I am adamantly against, and it's the use of toxins. When you poison whatever you're going to poison, rats, mice, it is a painful, horrible, tormenting, super slow process. We're talking, if they're lucky, they're dead in 12 hours. Can you imagine if you've had a mere stomach ache? You know how uncomfortable it is to have a stomach ache?
Yeah.
Imagine having a stomach ache that's going to lead to your death, and it takes 12 hours before you die. And remember, 12 hours is incredibly fast. Many times it takes more like 48 hours, even longer, right? It can sometimes take as long as a week of slow, agonizing pain. And if you've ever watched some people, I've heard people claim, oh, well, they're not really in pain. Have you ever watched a rat die from poison? If not, pull it up online and tell me that animal isn't suffering. They're kicking and screeching and dragging their half. Dude, they're not just like sitting there peaceful. Actually, there is a period when they sit there peaceful and they just kind of look dumb, right? But there are a lot of times where they're in their death throes for hours. Literally, one rat who nibbled some poison is going to suffer more than every rat I've ever killed in my entire life combined. Just one rat poisoned. And then when you consider the fact, I mean, that's just one reason to be against it. It's just cruel. But even if you ignore the cruelty, let's just say, hey, you know what? It's worth it because we'll solve the problem. No, you won't. What you will do, though, is you'll kill your neighbor's dog. You'll kill your neighbor's cat. You'll kill bald eagles and screech owls and all kinds of different animals that will eat those rats or mice or whatever you happen to be poisoning. And here's why. If you think about it, go back to anytime you've pictured a dead rodent from poison. Where did you find it? Was it hiding in some little like cubby? No, it was in the middle of your yard, twitching and rolling around and squealing. So when an animal's dying from poison, they basically become the perfect bait for whatever happens to eat those rodents.
Yeah.
They don't die quietly down in their burrow. They die out in the open, not just sitting still. They're rolling around and kicking and getting the attention of every predator within, they can visually see it. They're all like, hey, what's that animal doing over there? He's injured. He can't get away. Let me go eat it. And the red-tailed hawk gulps it down. Now you got a dead red-tailed hawk. And your neighbor cat gulps it down. Now you got a dead neighbor's cat. And your neighbor's dog gulps it down and it killed your neighbor's dog or your dog, And it's a horrible, vicious cycle because you cannot control, even if it's in your house. Well, I'll just put the poison in my house. Make sure that no animals can get to the poison itself. Well, that rat's going to crawl out and be running around in your front yard, teasing every great horned owl and whatever animal, fox that comes by. Hey, please eat me. I'm going to spend the next 5 hours twitching in the middle of this lawn. If anything passes by in the next 5 hours, come eat me. And then when they do die, they're laying in the open. Some fox or other scavenger gulps it down and same thing. So they've had bobcats, golden eagles, bald eagles, mountain lions, like every predator you can think of they've found dead with rat or mouse poisons in them. There isn't an animal that lives anywhere remotely near human who they haven't found secondary poisoning in. It's pretty much expected. When you find a bobcat and it's dead and there's no explanation, dissect it and you'll find rat poison's the culprit. And so it's just a vicious killer as far as how slow and painful it is. And it's super dangerous to wildlife around us and pets and livestock and all kinds of things. So I am adamantly against poisons. Part of it too is I just frankly don't see them working. I've gone to so many jobs who tried using poison and it didn't work. So it's like, it'd be one thing if it worked, right? It's got a horrible side effect. It's painful and tormenting to the poor rodents. It might kill some bald eagles, but hey, you know what? It works. Let's just use it because it works. Well, guess what? It doesn't a lot of the time. I've got some of the most rat-infested places I've been have a poison box every 3 or 4 blocks, or 3 or 4 per block, not every 3 or 4 blocks, 3 or 4 in every block, every city block. I've been to downtown DC, and there are poison boxes everywhere, and the rats hide in them. They're like, oh, there's a little perfect hiding spot. That's how comfortable they are, or how frequent those things are that they seek them out and use them to hide in. And there's rats everywhere. But guess what you don't see walking the streets of DC? You don't see foxes. You don't see feral cats. You don't see weasels. You don't see red-tailed hawks. But you've got rats. So you're poisoning just enough rats to be bait for anything that would have eaten them and kill off what would have eaten them. But you're not controlling the rat population because there's rats flipping everywhere. So, like I said, if it worked, if it was the magical pill that solved the problem, I would have a hard time saying, well, you shouldn't use it because of my feelings and yada, yada, yada. But guess what? It doesn't work and it has a negative result. Like what? It's a lose-lose, in my opinion. Now, I can't say it never works. I'm sure there are situations where poison came in and saved the day and it was properly used and nothing else died. I'm not saying that that's the case all the time, but I've seen so many instances where it's not the case that I just don't have much faith in it. And I'm not the kind of guy that says, oh, we should like make laws against stuff. I hate that. I think the government needs to back off and mind their own business. But those are some cases where I'm hard pressed to not say, I wouldn't feel bad if they made that crap illegal, because I don't see the benefit, but I see all the detriment, and I wouldn't mind if it went away tomorrow.
I get it. What what has living close to predators taught you about human behavior?
I would say I've learned more from people trying to deal with them. So trying to help people deal with predators, because I have a lot of people that reach out to me over the years and say, hey, I want to do this. This looks so much fun. And I'm like, sure, let's do this. And we link arms and we work together, and I strive to help them learn how to deal with this stubborn, difficult, frustrating animal. And I find out that people are really quick to get frustrated and give up and never return. And it's really a sad fact of life that I have never made a friend who stayed in the mink. I've had friends who were successful. I've had friends who failed, but I've never had anyone stay in it for more than a year or two, maybe 3 tops. They all get frustrated. They all get disappointed. They all end up giving up. And I think it's disappointing. I've mentored, I don't know how many people in my life. Like I said, some failed outright. Some had some degree of success. Some had great success. But one thing or another led to them giving up. And I think it's sad that people give up so quick on something that they claim to love.
Yeah. Have the animals ever mirrored something back to you about yourself that was uncomfortable?
I would say I've seen things in myself that make me uncomfortable from working.
Yeah.
So it's really easy. I have phenomenal long-term patience, meaning I'm going to stick to something for years and years and years, and I'm going to find a way to make it work. But I have horrible short-term patience, meaning on that particular, and I don't mean every time, I don't mean I always have bad, but on the wrong day, the wrong animal, the wrong mood, the wrong weather, something ticks me off. And man, do I struggle having patience in that moment. And I might stick with it. But I will, not might. I have stuck with all kinds of difficult animals, and in the end had success with them over and over and over again, whether we're talking stubborn horses or stubborn dogs or stubborn mink or stubborn birds of prey. I have success in the end, but man, I wish I had more patience in the short term and didn't get caught up in the moment and just overly frustrated with certain situations. I would say that's something that I've learned about myself that to this day frustrates me. And I definitely have improved. I just haven't improved enough, not near enough, in my opinion.
Did you ever expect this level of attention? And how's it changed you?
Never planned for it, wanted it, sought it, expected it. All I was doing was sharing my goofy little experiment with whoever cared to watch. And in the beginning, we're talking nobody. Like, oh, I got 30 views on this video. I wonder how many of those were mine, like that was, how many of those views are me watching it twice,
Yeah.
My mom's one, my neighbor's the other, I had no intentions or goals or desires for any kind of notoriety or fame. It just happened. And I don't know that it's changed me. I like to think that it hasn't, but I guess you'll have to ask the people who know me because they can tell the truth. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell things about yourself. It's a lot easier to look at someone else. So ask my wife that question.
How do you balance authenticity with the pressure to entertain online then while we're on this same vein?
I don't. I just say, screw it. If you don't like it, don't watch me. I don't care. I do me. And if you don't like it, go find another channel. Yeah. So I don't balance that at all. If anything, I'm a little, no, I don't even attempt to balance it. I guess the only way I would say I balance it is I'm like, okay, people watch more of these videos, so I'm going to make more of these videos. But I don't like, oh, I need to now be more bubbly or something. I am who I am, and if you don't like it, go watch another channel.
Have you guys been watching this bubbly guy? They call him the Minkman, but he's like a comedian now. Dropping dad's jokes like all the time. When it's all said and done, how do you want people to remember the Minkman?
I don't really want them to remember me. I just want them to remember the animals. The whole intro, my name is Joseph Carter and I am the Minkman, that wasn't my idea. My channel, had I realized when I was making my YouTube channel, I thought I was opening up a private page like a Facebook account, right? And what do you name your Facebook account? George Smith, right? Your name.
Yeah.
And so when I created YouTube account, I was like, oh, what's my name? Joseph Carter. Well, years went by and it became famous and there were lots of people watching it. And I'm like, crap, why is it my name? That's stupid. I should have called it like Minkenry or the Mink hunting mink or something like, and so I'm like, well, I can't just go out and change it and just like change it to Mink. Like, okay, what should I do? I'm like, well, I'll make it Joseph Carter, and then I'll put it what they call me. They call me the Minkman. So I'll just put those two things. But like, honestly, had I like magically had foresight, it would have been called Minkenry, which is the word I made up for hunting and fishing with a trained mink or something like that. Or it would have had nothing to do with me. So I don't really care if anyone remembers anything about me. What I want them to remember is how cool mink are, how amazing dogs are as a working companion, and how you don't have to poison the whole world to solve your problems. There are natural, healthy, natural, no other way to put it. There are natural ways to fix things without destroying the whole world. And so without torturing the poor animals to death in the slow agonizing poisons and things that other people use. So that's what I want people to remember. I don't care if you remember me. You don't need to remember me. I'm just the guy lucky enough to present it to you. That's not important.
Yeah. That's the ending. That's the ending for me there. For everyone listening, the Minkman. This is a man who's built his life on the wild, the unexpected, and the extraordinary. Whether you're fascinated, disturbed, or inspired, he said you could go to another channel. His story challenges the way we think about animals and discipline and following your own path. So, Joseph Carter, thanks for coming on. This was a blast. I had a lot of fun. And for everyone else, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And thanks for talking with Donato, Joseph.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun.
We'll see you.
Take care.